Good morning. Like I've talked about throughout the 6 years, school threats are not to be taken lightly. In case 6 days ago from Fox Detroit, two high school students have been arrested that led to these threats. Take a look.
Message from fire.
Listen to this and you'll know what I mean.
My kids don't want to go back to school.
2 days, two separate school threats, two teens arrested in Ferndale.
We were going over the procedures because of the threat yesterday, and then on social media, I saw it on Snapchat. My friend sent me the picture.
This is what freshman Griffin saw, a photo of a note found in the school's bathroom saying someone was going to shoot up the school and they had loaded AR pistols to do it. The school went into lockdown.
They were doing a canned food drive for the holidays, and because my daughter's on the softball team, they gave her and her softball classmates cans to throw just in case.
Mary didn't know for the better part of an hour if there was any truth to that note. Thankfully, there was not.
How hard is it to send your kids to school every morning?
I don't want them to live in fear, and I don't want to live in fear. But if they don't want to go back to school this week, that's fine. They can stay home.
On Monday,
not
Ferndale
fine.
middle and high schools canceled after this hit list surfaced and circulated on social media. A 16-year-old female student believed to be behind that threat arrested. And in Tuesday's threatening note, a 16-year-old male student arrested, both being held at Children's Village in Pontiac. Threats like these can get you a felony and up to 20 years behind bars.
It's kind of embarrassing because they're messing their entire lives up. Because even a joke that could prevent them from getting into their dream college, all that stuff.
Ferndale police swept the school Tuesday and found nothing to show the threat was valid. Class was dismissed early.
I think they should close the schools for the rest of the week and just start again next week. But
Kind of a refresh.
yeah, kind of a refresh.
Reporting in Ferndale, Jessica Dupnack, Fox 2 News.
And like I've talked about, these threats are no joke. Lockdowns happen. You'll be going to jail, and you won't get your diploma. You want to spend the rest of your life in jail? Maybe what we need is a scared straight program for all the people out there who make these threats. What we actually need is a scared straight program. Meaning if a student or a group of students make threats to the school, during their suspension, we throw them in jail. That'll teach them a lesson. We scare them straight, and they'll learn. Hey, I better not make any more of these threats, because if I do, this is where I'm going to wind up. I'm going to wind up in jail. I don't want to go to jail. Because you're going to throw away your future, you're going to throw away your college, you're going to throw away your college, and if you think threats are a joke, this is not a joke. Look, I'm Googling up school threats right now. And click on news, there you go. And these threats are no joke. Just yesterday, Marquette High canceled classes for Monday and Tuesday following threats of violence in Clarkson Valley. Students and lawmakers spoke out of school hoax threats. And students are flipping over desks and making school threats. Why that behavior is becoming more common. Sheriff's deputies were investigating possible threats in multiple school districts across Middle Tennessee as students arrived for class earlier this month. Both started with a concerning message on Snapchat, written on the wall of a girl's bathroom. While neither was credible, the students believed to be responsible were each charged with making a false report. Before joining the faculty on college education, this is from Nicole Cobb, served as executive director of school counseling. Her research shows to focus on school counseling, economic control, and learning. But the question is, why are kids displaying more destructive behaviors? What's causing students to engage in more destructive, violent behaviors? And maybe that can link to home environments and mental health. COVID-19 has already arisen an issue, but further stress on children's health. Studies have there was a study conducted by the Health Resources Services Division. It found between 2016 and 2020, the number of children ages 3 to 17 diagnosed with anxiety grew by 29%, and depression led by 27%. Children who spend many hours at home alone, who are in an unstable environment, may act down in attention-seeking ways, and for some, especially younger kids. Cop says there's not a great understanding of making a threat and the consequence of that. All they know is they maybe want to cause some chaos and get out of school or exert some control. Some students who are engaged in those behaviors have been found to lack a certain social and emotional awareness. How do we turn the ship around? Create more social and emotional learning time. Invest in mental health services in schools and partner with families to address needs within the home. With a focus on getting students back on track academically, cops said more of those social and emotional developments are being overlooked. However, in order to find a long-term solution, cops said officials will need to continue to take a deeper look into why this is happening. We know why. It's because the kids don't want to go to school. But a deeper look is happening. And as for that threat from Townsend, well, there was an email sent out threatening, and this is what happened. NPR investigators found this 113 hoax calls targeting schools across 19 states, some in October. So again, this is no joke. This is the real deal. Ag-gag laws. Laws that are to protect farmers from, to protect these filmers from filming on farms. We'll show you a case when we return. Stay with us. Up front today, Ag-gag. Ag-gag laws are anti-whistleblower laws that apply within the agricultural industry. Popularized by Mark Bittman in April 2011. The New York Times column with the Ag-gag refers to state laws. That's what's according to Wikipedia. But used long before then by activists. The term ag-gag typically refers to state laws in the U.S. that forbid undercover filming or photography of activity farms without consent of the owner, particularly targeting whistleblowers of animal rights abuse in the facilities. Although these laws originate in the United States, they also have begun to appear elsewhere, such as Australia and Canada. Supporters of ag-gag laws have argued that they serve to protect the agricultural industry from the negative repercussions of exposés and whistleblowers. The ag-gag laws have been criticized by various groups, arguing that the laws are intended to primarily censor animal rights and abuses by the agricultural industry from the public, create a chilling effect in reporting these violations, and violate the rights to freedom of speech. A number of U.S. ag-gag laws have been overturned as violation of the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Let's take a look at these states. Iowa. Arkansas has a law. Idaho has a law. Iowa has a law. Kansas has a law. Utah has a law. North Carolina. None in Texas. I mean, it happened back in the early 1990s. Even in Australia and Canada. Even in France. All over the country. All over the country and all over the world. Now we're about to hear some experts, and you're going to meet someone who filmed on a farm, but then was arrested. Here's John Stossel.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
A woman records what appears to be a live cow being pushed by a bulldozer.
And the bulldozer?
Yes, he's alive.
She was filming from public land. The farm owner drove up and confronted her.
You cannot videotape my property from public property.
Why are you concerned about being filmed if you have no problem? You think this is a legitimate business?
It is a legitimate business.
Utah prosecutors charged the woman with agricultural operation interference.
Am I free to leave or am I being detained?
You're being detained.
But she was on public land. They dropped the charges several months later. But what if she'd sneaked onto a farm to record what she considered animal abuse? More than 100 such investigations have been done. Activists pose as farm workers and secretly record the way animals are treated.
An animal rights group released this undercover video of the dairy farm. It shows workers hitting, kicking, and throwing young calves. We are not showing the most disturbing parts of the video.
Farmers upset about these recordings are persuading politicians to
essentially outlaw these undercover investigations.
The controversial ag gag law.
The sixth state to pass an ag gag law.
There are activists stalking farms to try to capture something that the public doesn't understand.
Kay Johnson Smith speaks for a farm group that supports the ag gag laws, though they don't call them that.
We would call it farm protection. Farm protection.
What about everybody else? Why do you get special protection?
The agricultural community is the only business community that this sort of tactic is really being used on right now.
I'm an investigative reporter. I can't do my job if there are laws that prevent me from showing things. Nobody believes it if you don't see it.
These activist groups want to eliminate all of animal agriculture.
Brittany, you're holding a dead body.
This group live streams its protests on Facebook.
You saw a dumpster with hundreds of dead birds?
Many of the activists stormed into the farm. Some stole some of the baby ducklings.
We were just able to rescue almost 30 baby ducks.
Others chained themselves to the entrance of the farm.
Later, the activists released this video of the 30 stolen ducklings, adding music and showing the birds running around, apparently happy. They stole those ducks after seeing this earlier undercover video of injured ducks at the farm.
Mercy for Animals says their undercover investigations have led to criminal charges.
Ag gag laws often prevent such investigations, which is why farm states pass them.
A bill making it illegal to apply for a job in a farming operation under false pretenses.
But what about free speech?
Ag gag laws chill speech.
Lawyer Amanda Howell speaks for the Animal Legal Defense Fund, a group that says ag gag laws are unconstitutional. And they did get several states' laws struck down. Iowa then just passed a new law.
Ag Gag 2.0, a bipartisan bill trying again to stop people from lying to get onto farms.
These groups are exposing issues that are happening.
If they really cared about animals, they would stop it right then. Instead, they go weeks and months without reporting anything to the farm owners.
That's true. This investigation went on for months. Agricultural groups are now pushing laws that would force activists to report abuse quickly. Why don't they?
They want to make their movie. They want to make their sensational video.
It's because they care about the animals that they want to show that that's something that happens every day on these farms.
Consistent, constant abuse.
A company can say, this is a one-off. This is not just discrete actors. This is company policy.
They say they don't want to just correct the abuse on that farm. They want to change all farming practices.
What they really want is to stop people from eating meat, milk, and eggs.
Do you want people to stop eating meat?
I want people to act in their conscience.
But you didn't really answer the question. Do you want people to stop eating meat or eggs?
I think that, again, Are we asking me personally, or are we asking the Animal Legal Defense Fund?
She never did give a direct answer.
Workers at the turkey farm abusing the birds.
Animal rights activists have exposed things that need exposing.
Walmart now taking a stand when it comes to the treatment of farm-raised animals.
How else would you have made these changes without sneaking into your farms?
Well, that's to say that farmers can't be trusted, and I think that
apparently in the past, some could not.
There are bad apples in every industry. However, I would say 99.9% of farmers in America, they do the right thing every single day. Farming isn't always pretty.
People have some right to privacy, no?
I think we should all be worried when corporations are supporting laws that impinge our right to free speech.
We should worry. Whatever you think of the activists, and I have problems with many of them, government shouldn't pass special laws that prevent people from revealing what's true.
We want our rights. I mean, ag laws violate our right to free speech. And when that happens, I guess go complain to your politician and say, hey, these ag-gag laws we're doing, these ag-gag laws violate our freedom of speech. But there are laws. But there are laws to protect us. And the purpose of this is to protect the farmers. So complain to that farmer, and you can go up to your congressman, and the congressman will work on it. Now, you've just heard about an ag-gag law from the farms. What about filming the police? Up next, Dave Ridley is going to tell you some secrets and tips the next time you decide to record a police officer in New Hampshire or wherever you're at. Stay with us. A citizen in New Hampshire was arrested for videotaping the police. What was going on? It was because years ago, New Hampshire passed a law saying, a wiretapping law that says you have to have the consent of all parties in order to record video or audio. Now, he let the police know that he was videotaping. After all that, the officer said, I'd rather not be videotaped.
So I'd like to shut that off right now.
In a free county, can you be handcuffed or videotaped the police?
So shut it off, you're going to be coming with me.
Animals. I'm an investigator. Right now, if there's no shelter up for these horses, there's a violation here. The horses have to have shelter from November 1st to April 15th of every year. And there's no shelter that I can see on this property.
Hi there, can I help you? I'm the caretaker of the place.
I'm waiting for the police department to show up.
Okay, why is that?
Because these horses don't seem to have any shelter until November 1st to April 15th of every year they're supposed to have shelter.
Yeah, we're aware of the laws that are in place. We do have shelter up and back.
Well, I asked that gentleman that. He said that he's not willing to show me the shelter for the horses.
Okay.
I'd rather not.
Okay. And also, I'd rather not be video and audio recorded.
It's okay.
So I'd like to shut that off right now.
I'd rather not.
Well, I'm asking, it's illegal right now what you're doing. I don't want to be audio, video
You already got your consent though when you came up and said
well,
that you
then I told you I want it off now, so you should shut it off now. So shut it off.
Is there any law that says that he has?
Absolutely.
What is the law?
Absolutely, you need to have a person's verbal permission.
We got your permission.
You got my permission. He just told you he wanted it off. I didn't give you my permission either. And it's a felony if you're taping.
You guys are public.
And recording that.
Public people here. You have.
That's a violation. But he was arrested under that law. But it got changed to a disorderly conduct. So what can you do next time you decide to videotape the police or anyone else? Here's Dave Ridley.
You're being audio recorded.
You want to shut that off?
I don't want to. I'm not in a position to give legal advice, but I do want to let all of you know a little bit about the way I handle videotaping. By that I mean the way I handle video and audio recording of police, bureaucrats, people who don't want to be video audio recorded, even though they're in a public place. It's a dicey situation in New Hampshire because we have a wiretapping law here that says you've got to have the consent of all parties in order to record audio. How are you? What are you videotaping? I'm videotaping you and audio recording at this time. When a police officer walks up to me and I've got my camera, I feel like I have several options. The most dangerous option, and the one I never choose, is to surreptitiously, secretly record the police. I don't know of any cases out on the sidewalks and streets where a person's been arrested for doing this, but some people interpret the wiretapping law as forbidding it. It would be conceivably a misdemeanor to do this. The second option, slightly less dangerous legally, is to have the camera out, inform the police that you're audio recording them, and then see how they respond. Oftentimes they'll tell you to turn off the camera, and again, if I'm using this, option number 2, I will refuse to comply with the order to turn off the camera, but I do that very openly and as respectfully as I can.
I'm asking you to turn the camera off, sir. Are you willing to comply?
I am not willing to turn the camera off. I am willing to back up.
Are you willing to leave, sir?
Yes.
Okay, I'm asking you to please. Good enough?
This is only moderately dangerous, and I only know of one instance in which a person has been arrested for doing this. It was Cooper Travis over in Candia, a Free Stater. This happened about a month ago in November 2008. The incident appears to have completely blown up in the police faces. Authorities told Cooper they would arrest him if he didn't stop audio taping. They hauled him off in a squad car and never charged him with anything, released him within a couple of hours. The police chief in Candia, New Hampshire, to his credit, ended up apologizing to the family. I've spoken to an attorney about this type of approach, this type of recording, and she informs me that no, they don't really have grounds to arrest you on wiretapping charges when you do this, openly recording them in a public place. But they can arrest you for, disorderly conduct. She could seem to consider it a pretty good hill to die on, and that seemed to be the case for Cooper. However, my read on that statute and other people's read on that statute is a little more conservative and a little more cautious in that it could be interpreted, I think, to mean that you could be arrested even if you openly inform them. Even if you're out on public property, you could be arrested under the wiretapping law. By my read on the law, again, an attorney probably knows more than I do, but just looking at the text, I have to look at option number 2, the open recording, the telling them you're audio recording and refusing to give up. I have to look at that as civil disobedience. And the reason I inform police that I'm doing it is not so much to conform with the law as it is to make sure that I'm deeply in civil disobedience mode. Because civil disobedience is not something you do surreptitiously. You're not hiding what you do. You do it out in the open. So again, my reason for informing the police that I'm recording is, yes, it could put you in a better position in terms of the law, but the most important reason is simply to make sure that you are being openly civilly disobedient. Now, there's a third option. I'll call it option number 3, which is safer than options 1 or 2. What you can do is you can get out your camera when you see the police coming or when you want to talk to the bureaucrats or whatnot. When they tell you to turn the camera off, you've got that on camera, but you comply with the order. Okay, I am turning off the camera under protest or whatever. Now, this way you miss whatever may happen afterwards. But you've got video of them telling you to shut off the camera, telling the whole world they're afraid of the world seeing what they're doing. Roger Grant used this approach at the famous open carry incident outside Murphy's Tap Room in Manchester. The police got some negative reaction because they had told him to turn off the camera. Well, Roger Grant got no negative reaction because he complied. Now, there's also option 4, which is probably the most cop-friendly option of all of these, and that is simply to have your camera ready at your side, in your hand, ready to turn it on if things start to go bad and you start to get desperate. I've used this option once when police came up to my vehicle, and it was probably the right thing to do under the circumstances. There have also been occasions where I whipped the camera out and considered turning it on, but kind of held off because I didn't want to inflame the situation. Well, in the second case, I wished that I had been rolling. So it's dicey, but my advice is if you're rolling the camera, be very upfront and open about it at least. And look at it as a potential act of civil disobedience for which you could go to jail. Now, if you look at the video description for this clip, which will be over there, then you will see a link to some writing that I've done on this subject, which will kind of lay everything out for you in a manner that you can come back to. It makes me very nervous that there are, a lot of people running around there with cameras that don't really understand what they're getting into in terms of the wiretapping law. So I just want to make you aware of the dangers, as many people as possible aware of the dangers. That way you can make an informed decision. This is Dave Ridley signing off from New Hampshire for RidleyReport.com this December 8th, 2008.
It's a good idea to put a little message on your camera lens that says I'm on entertainment in case you forget. Or you will forget sometimes. But don't we have the right to privacy? We do. If we don't want to be taped, we don't need to be going to the politicians saying, hey, I want a law that says no one videotapes without consent. We don't need laws like that. We have a right to record. With myself, I have the right to privacy. If someone wants to videotape me, I have to ask first. And if I find a video on YouTube about me, then I have the right to say, hey, I want this deleted right now, otherwise this and that will happen. That's the whole key here. We need laws to protect us. That's what a lot of people say. Hey, we need laws. I'm against these laws. I'm seriously against laws like this. In the middle of the night, you're dragged out of your home because of your behavior. What do? You're dragged out in the middle of the night. Then, you're taken to an out-of-country program that will help you set straight. Is it worth it? Bob McEwen on Paradise Cove. Stay with us. As parents, we need to make sure that our kids are doing good, are behaving well. But what if you found out your child was doing drugs, drinking, this and this, and you want to find some alternative help? You try everything. Then you heard about someone. Then you hear about someone that says, "We'll drag your kid out in the middle of the night and we'll take him out of the country to make him better." What if you found out that this program is more than doing good? You're about to meet some kids and parents who say, there's something sinister going on. Here's Bob McEwen.
Daddy! Happy birthday to you.
Thank you for that lovely singing.
It can happen anytime. For David Von Blarigan, it was just after his father's birthday party. For Danny Kohler, during a family vacation. Most likely it'll be in the middle of the night while you're sleeping, like it was for Stanley Gould.
Then the men lifted me up out of my bed. Two of them had each of my arms, and they just kind of dragged me out to their car. They had handcuffs and tasers to restrain me, and they were very large.
The next part is more or less the same. You're taken from your home to a psychiatric hospital, perhaps this one in Utah, where you're examined and evaluated. Then you're sent for treatment to a guarded compound, thousands of miles away, in another country.
It wasn't really till I was actually in Samoa and sleeping on the floor that I realized, okay, this is it.
For Danny Kohler, it was welcome to Western Samoa, to a place called Paradise Cove, where sleeping on the floor is only the beginning. This home video shows the Spartan conditions that Paradise Cove brags about. Hot, humid weather, bad food, big bugs, no TV and no privacy. Usually it's months before you're allowed even one short phone call back to the U.S.
Was there a point at which you said, I just want to get out of here, I want to go home?
Oh yeah, all the time. I wanted to leave that place.
This is what is broadly known as an emotional growth program, a place that takes troubled teens and tries to mold their behavior.
What I found in my experience with kids working 20 years, 5,000 kids, is very few of them change because someone sat down and had a talk with them.
Bob Litchfield founded Paradise Cove in 1994. He's now a consultant to that program and to several others that deal with problem kids.
You were talking about more than the run-of-the-mill problems of adolescence, more than just a little teenage rebellion.
Exactly. Maybe they've tried counseling, they've tried different options, and nothing seems to be working.
And so, which is precisely how the Kohlers felt 3 years ago.
Our family was falling apart over it.
Their son Danny was then in the 10th grade, using and dealing drugs at this upscale high school near San Diego.
How old were you?
15, 16.
And what drugs?
All of them. Mainly marijuana, LSD, crystal meth.
And if things had gone on the way they were going at that point, what would have happened?
I would say that he'd be either dead or in jail.
So the Kohlers made what they called the toughest decision of their lives. Well, on vacation in Las Vegas, they had Danny taken by force and sent to Western Samoa, to Paradise Cove.
I remember I broke down and cried. I was hugging him. Maybe we were part of the problem, but I was devastated. I didn't get over that. Maybe I'm not over it.
In addition to its harsh lifestyle, Paradise Cove features 24-hour-a-day monitoring by no-nonsense Samoan chaperones and continuous indoctrination in personal responsibility and the value of families. It was 6 months before Danny was allowed to call home, more than a year before his parents were allowed to visit him. But then, the Kohlers were stunned.
I don't think I could say it was just the greatest moment of my life.
Why?
Because he beams. He's healthy, he shines, he's loving. When I saw him, it was great. I had my Danny back.
Danny Kohler would stay in Western Samoa for a year and a half, breaking old habits, working his way up the ladder of leadership in the Paradise Cove family.
And I was a family leader, and I was like, wow, you know, these people look up to me. This is something I want to keep doing. This is something I want to take home with me and use to better my life.
It's the kind of success story that's triggered an explosion in the teen behavior modification field, tripling the number of programs just 2 years ago.
Are there kids who respond in the opposite direction? Are there kids for whom this is simply not the right thing to do?
Having worked with 5,000 or so children in my career, I don't think there's any child that I've met that hasn't been positively influenced.
Just don't try to convince Stanley Gould of that.
What did the kids who'd been there a while tell you this was going to be like?
They said it was going to be hell.
He was mutilating himself with, he would come home and he would have scars in his arms from where he'd taken a cigarette butt and burned his arm.
But for Gould's divorced mother Jane, Paradise Cove was the last resort. She says by 16, her son was into drugs, even self-mutilation.
He was suspended from school, expelled from school.
Why?
For carrying a weapon, knife.
She thought the answer was a place where you simply weren't allowed to break the rules.
It looked like a Nazi death camp. It did not look like any fun.
What happened if someone said, I don't want to be here, I'm not learning anything worthwhile, and I'm not going to do it anymore?
Well, that would depend on who he said it to. He would either get a consequence or he would be physically assaulted.
What would that entail?
That would entail, holding a kid's arm behind his back, punching him, kicking him, pushing him, throwing him.
What is the policy of Paradise Cove concerning physical discipline or punishment?
The policy really is that it's the last resort. It's only, there is no such thing as physical punishment. There's only physical restraint.
In fact, the enrollment contract signed by Jane Gould and other parents allowed Paradise Cove to do a lot more than that.
I think the contract mentioned handcuffs, pepper spray, electrical disablers.
Okay, I don't think any of those electrical disabler, pepper spray, mace had never been used, to my knowledge, of Paradise Cove. It was in the enrollment agreement for very rare situations where safety and life and limb were in danger.
That specific clause has since been eliminated from the Paradise Cove contract. But Dateline spoke with other parents who had definite concerns about how their children were treated in Western Samoa.
Okay, senora.
One of those parents is pediatrician Ronald Skufka. Though the annual cost of Paradise Cove is $35,000, more than a year at Harvard, it had seemed worth it to cure the drug and alcohol addictions of his two sons, Nathan and James. At least that's what Dr. Skufka thought, until he discovered that the Samoan Health Department had investigated the program's sanitary conditions. The report found numerous problems, including overcrowding, poor sanitation, and inadequate cooking and washing facilities.
They had no refrigeration and no running water, and they had no bathing facilities whatsoever. My son told me he did not see a bar of soap for 5 months.
When Skufka was reunited with his older son, Nathan, he couldn't believe his condition.
He had sores all over his feet, his chest, his legs, his arms, hands, and face. And he was a mess.
And he was a mess. Coming up next, you're going to meet another victim of the Paradise Cove, and you're also going to see what we found when the Paradise Cove was created. Stay with us. Paradise Cove ain't no paradise. It's just a way to help these troubled teens. As parents, we need to help out our troubled teens. You're about to meet some more victims of this Paradise Cove who have been abused. Once again, here's Bob McEwen.
Today, Eric Schluniger of Tulsa, Oklahoma is an active 18-year-old. But a couple of years ago, when his father Bill saw him after just a few months at Paradise Cove,
he had sores on his feet and then all up his legs, and a lot of sores on his arms.
I'd say about 80% of the people at least got ringworm sometimes when they were there. And scabies, I think, was another thing that people were getting.
Back in the summer of 1996, the Western Samoa Department of Health threatened to shut Paradise Cove down if sanitary conditions there didn't improve. The people running the program made the required changes, and Paradise Cove has since been given a clean bill of health. But what most alarmed Bill Schluniger about the place he had chosen to help his son was what he says happened when he and his wife attended a support group in the U.S. for Paradise Cove parents. First, there were the rules.
No one would take aspirin during this seminar. No one would drink Coca-Cola. No one would drink coffee, any caffeine products. There would be no one that should have sex during this program. And I thought, we've come into the wrong room. There's some, they're trying to recruit some people for a cult here, This is the wrong place for us.
Even worse, the Schlunigers say that as part of the program, one of the Paradise Cove speakers verbally attacked a skeptical mother.
And he says, I could shoot you right now. I could blow your heads off, or I could just take you and rape you if I wanted to, and you couldn't do anything about it. And I said, well, right now, I'm ready to load up and go get my son. Because, there's something sinister going on here.
That was when the Schlunigers brought their boy home from Western Samoa.
We felt bad about it. We felt, terribly guilty about sending our kid to a place like that.
He's moving forward again with his life. I think it's taken him about a year to recover from Paradise Cove so that he can do that.
Dr. Eric Nelson is a psychologist who treated Eric Schluniger upon his return to the U.S.
He was angry, he was hurt, he was scared, he was unsure what this experience was that he had been through. So he was essentially lost.
Dr. Nelson also treated another boy, who he says still shows the effects of the treatment he received at Paradise Cove.
In terms of really being almost bewildered by what this was supposed to have accomplished, a lot of anger, and really a sense that he had been brainwashed.
Oh, I think it is brainwashing. It's 100%.
Litchfield tells us he's not familiar with these individual cases, but he believes that Eric, Stanley, and the Skufka boys would have had a positive experience at Paradise Cove if they'd only stuck with it. And he says the same goes for the seminars. He claims that virtually all the parents who complete the 3-day program are satisfied with it. But according to Stanley Gould, 11 months at Paradise Cove was long enough. He claims that things seemed so bleak that some of the boys concocted a terrible plan to get out.
The rumor was that if someone died over there, that the program would shut down for 6 months. And so a few kids had made a knife-like object, and they were planning on stabbing a kid in the neck and killing him so that they could go home. Even if it meant going home to jail, it was still worth it to them.
Would I be shocked by that? No. Because...
Really? An alleged plot by adolescents to commit murder, and that doesn't shock you?
Believe me, these kids brought that with them. And if you're trying to say that the environment created that, no. No, they brought that with them.
But if that's true, where are the child psychologists or counselors on the Paradise Cove staff? People trained to deal with such serious emotional problems.
Now, if you read the brochures for Paradise Cove, what isn't there is any discussion of the experience or the expertise or the credentials or the academic qualifications of the people who are teaching these kids. Why is that?
We hire people with good youth leadership, have some talent working with youth. I think I'm talented working with youth, but I don't have a, quote, college degree in that area. And so I personally don't believe it's necessary.
But when you're dealing with troubled kids, and seriously troubled kids as you describe them, is it not necessary to have someone who knows about that in academic detail?
They change because of the experiences in their lives. And so that's what we're after, an experience, not a counseling type of situation.
Whether that's the type of shakeup that will help them in the long run or not, it can be questionable in some ways.
Dr. Eric Nelson and other psychologists tell us that counseling is what most troubled teens need.
The more punitive types of programs, the ones that are run like penal colonies or like prisoners of war camps, are more likely either to create a lot of anger and rebellion in the child that emerges when he or she returns home, or, if I may put it this way, breaks the spirit of the child so that creativity and spontaneity and a real motivation toward the future can be lost.
Bob Litchfield has provided Dateline with testimonials from dozens of happy parents, and he tells us that a recent internal survey shows that 96.6% of the parents whose children complete the program are satisfied with it. But Litchfield also acknowledges that for a variety of reasons, 60% of the teens who start never finish the program. And he has no follow-up studies on any of the students as to how they do after they leave Paradise Cove. And there's another question.
Remember the psychiatric hospital in Utah where kids like Stanley Gould and Danny Kohler were examined and evaluated to medically determine if they should be sent to an emotional growth facility like Paradise Cove? Well, last year, the State Health Department investigated that hospital, officially called the Brightway Adolescent Hospital. Authorities found that those medical evaluations were really just form letters. Stanley and 14 other patients they investigated got exactly the same one, and that the treatment had been predetermined and paid for before the examination even took place. A package deal that included the abduction, transportation, and confinement at Paradise Cove. And whose company did we discover was running that psychiatric hospital?
And really,
Bob Litchfield's.
Again, let me clarify Brightway. Brightway is probably the program I've had the least amount of involvement in.
Managed by your company, however.
Well,
according to the Director of Licensing for the State Health Department, managed by your company.
We don't own it, but we do a management contract with it. Okay.
Litchfield later told us that the patient evaluations appeared to be form letters because the treatment plans are on computers and because most of the diagnoses are very similar. Since we spoke to Litchfield, his company's contract to manage Brightway Adolescent Hospital was terminated. The state of Utah temporarily revoked the hospital's standard health license, and the owners of the hospital plan to reopen under different management.
Yeah, she's an actress.
But in San Diego, at the home of the Kohler family, they consider Danny's experience at Paradise Cove a terrific success. They say without it, he might well be dead instead of on his way to college.
When you came home, how different do you think you were from when you left?
Oh, I know I'm different. I have some goals for myself. I have a life ahead of me.
But Stanley Gould, the Skufka boys, and Eric Schluniger say they had a different experience. Nathan Skufka has completed a 12-step program and is now working. His younger brother James has battled with drugs, but hopes to graduate from high school. Eric is out of school and working too. Bob Litchfield says the program probably would have worked for these boys had they only given it more time.
When you're the best in the business, you're under the most amount of luck and monitoring. Some people are going to perceive us in a very bad way. Other people are going to perceive us as saving kids' lives.
As for Stanley Gould, he says he's no longer getting into trouble. He's now enrolled in a community college, studying to be a psychiatrist. His mom credits the program in Samoa with saving his life. His dad, with whom he lives, disagrees. He says his son is doing fine now, in spite of Paradise Cove. Sitting here now, Stanley, do you believe in some way, as unpleasant as it might have been, you're a better person because you did that?
As better as I would have been going through Vietnam.
The United States has no laws to protect American children in overseas programs, but at the request of the State Department, Samoan authorities have opened an investigation into Paradise Cove and 2 other similar programs for American teens.
I'll give you my take on this on the second half, along with taking on the mob, a Dateline exclusive. That's all for this first half of Give Me a Break Tuesday. We're back again for the second half later tonight. Follow us here, Give Me a Break, and YouTube. Have a good day. I'll see you soon.